Today we're going to talk about and compare rape culture in India and in Sweden. It is well known that India has some huge issues with sexual assault and rape. But why is this such a problem in India compared to other countries? Some believe that it can be explained by analyzing the rape culture. But what is a rape culture? Let's take a look. The term rape culture was founded by the feminist movement in 1970. But ever since, the definition of rape culture has been discussed and the term is not always accepted as something real. By the definition on Wikipedia, rape culture is a setting in which rape is pervasive and normalized due to societal attitudes about gender and sexuality. Now this can be a little tricky to understand, so let's show a few examples. The most obvious example is prison rape. I am sure that even some of you watching has ever thought, well, they had it coming, or they deserved it. Rape in prison is seen as a non-problematic, maybe even a good thing. And joking about the subject is a very common occurrence, as you all may know, and the consequences of prison rape are being diminished. Officials say that in 2011, 4% of every state and federal prison inmate had been raped in the last 12 months. But we all know that number is way too low. The majority of rapes go unreported. Another example is war rape. In many cases, it is accepted and even encouraged by officials for a soldier to rape civilians. It is not only used as a way of psychological warfare and terror, it is seen as a reward to advancing troops. It is also common to capture girls and women to use them as sex slaves to raise morale among the troops. What we have seen in the examples are some very characteristic phenomena in a rape culture. Victim blaming, sexual objectification, trivializing rape, denial of widespread rape, refusing to acknowledge the harm caused by some forms of sexual violence. But do these phenomena exist in everyday life in the Swedish and Indian society? We all know how common rape is in India, a country with over a sixth of the world's population. But yet in Sweden, with a population of only 9.8 million, that is not even 0.8% of India's population. The total amount of reported rapes are about 27% of India's. Only 2 per 100,000 in India has reported a rape, as in Sweden, where that number is 69 per 100,000. That puts Sweden as second in the world after Botswana. Does this mean that India's rape problems are exaggerated and that Sweden is the one with huge issues? No, it does not. First of all, it needs to be mentioned that Sweden has widened the definition of rape and is also making an effort to decrease the number of unreported rapes. But most of all, it means that hidden statistics is a big problem when talking about rape. To get somewhat of a grip over all the unreported rapes, here is an image taken from a Swedish organization called Fatta.nu. We can see that every week 700 rapes are committed in Sweden. Only 120 of these are reported. Of course, it is hard to work with and estimate hidden statistics. This image has been criticized for the accuracy of the numbers, but it still gives us some perspective on the situation. We can only begin to imagine the amounts of unreported rape in India. But why would you not report to the police that you have been raped? There are of course several reasons as how inefficient the justice system can be, as shown in the picture where only 3 of the rapists are convicted in the end. But the biggest reasons are threats and victim blaming. Asking what the victim was wearing, if she had any alcohol in her blood, or if she had flirted with the attacker earlier. We have all heard examples of victim blaming. But in India, it takes a leap to the extreme. In the controversial and in India banned BBC documentary India's Daughter, We get to hear the defense lawyer of a rape victim say that if it was his daughter who was raped, he would gather the family in their backyard and light her on fire while they all watch. And he would do this because she would have brought shame to the family by being a victim of rape. We also get to hear a rapist say that good girls wouldn't go outside after 9, therefore she deserved to be raped. Another one says that girls are more responsible for provoking rape than boys are for actually raping. Another thing to have in mind is the arranged marriages in India, often with a very young bride. This is of course illegal in Sweden, but is actually very common in India. It is seen that through marriage, the young girl goes from being the father's possession to the husband's. Many of these girls are too young to even know what sex is. 1.4 million girls between 10 and 14 years old in India are married. Despite their low age, these girls are seen as sexual objects, with their husbands having full access to their bodies anytime they like. It is unlikely to think that these girls would even ever get the opportunity to report a rape. India seems to qualify pretty well for a rape culture. So is the reason why we have so many reported rapes in Sweden that we have managed to break the taboo and stop the shaming of victims? Is it because we have managed to stop objectification and other phenomena of a rape culture? Well, compared to India, you might say so. But we still have problems with everything mentioned, and it doesn't justify the high figures. Sweden also has a long way to go. Just a few days ago, attorney Elisabeth Masi Fritz was representing a victim of a rape. When the judge asked her client what kind of underwear she wore at the time of the rape, Elisabeth responded by asking the rapist to describe his underwear. This became stuff for the newspapers and woke up the discussion of how victim blaming is very much alive in the Swedish justice system. Another way that victim blaming is displayed in Sweden is when people tend to take the rapist's side, maybe even accusing the victim of lying. An example of this is when 14 years old Linnea was raped at her school in 2010. No one at her school believed her, and her peers started to show their support to the rapist. They even started a support group on Facebook, reaching over 4,000 members. Not even when he raped another girl and got convicted for both rapes did the other students believe her. It eventually forced her family to move over 500 kilometers away. And just as we earlier talked about jokes about prison rapes and how it is trivializing rape, the internet is full of jokes about rape of all kinds. This very much includes Swedish forums and users and makes rape seem like not such a big deal, especially to young people who spend a lot of time online. While most of crime rates are going down in the long run, rape still seems to be on a steady uphill in Sweden. From about 800 rapes per year to 5,500 in 2008, as seen in the picture, to 6,700 in 2014. And in India, there has been a big wave of gang rapes and assaults for the past few years. So in conclusion, I think both countries have their own issues. India is often seen as the world's rape capital, and the horror stories of young women and gang rapes are far too frequent. I think India needs to modernize their views on rape and who's to blame. They also need to put in a higher effort in preventing rapes and punishing rapists. Most rapes happen within the household, which makes me think that also modernizing gender roles and stopping arranged marriages would have a huge positive impact. And for Sweden, we will have to do something about the drastically increasing rates of rape. I think a lot of effort can be put into the Swedish legal system. Thanks for watching.